Today we are going to learn about the Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. Asking questions like how long did it take, what was it painted in, and the struggles that he went through to get this masterpiece completed. So let's take a look up and learn a little about Michelangelo and the chapel everyone knows about. See you on the other side.
The Sunday Painter. Please click and subscribe, hit the like button, and don't forget the little bell so you will be the first when we have an inspirational idea.
So who is Michelangelo? I want to clear something up first. Michelangelo was his first name, not his last, like Da Vinci or Pollock. Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni is his full name. Try saying that 3 times. He was born in the year of 1475 and died in 1564. He was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect and poet of the High Renaissance, who had an unparalleled influence on the development of Western art. Some say the greatest artist of all time. I'll save this for another video. Now on to the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo worked on the chapel from 1508 to 1512. Sistine is a papal chapel built in the Vatican, between 1477 and 1480. The ceiling was commissioned by Pope Julius II. The Sistine Chapel resembles a high rectangular building with no doorways because its entrance is through the papal palace. The exterior of the Sistine Chapel can be seen only from nearby windows. Did you know, Michelangelo had to use foreshortening and perspective techniques, because of the barrel shape of the ceiling. He took in the consideration of what that art would look like from the ground. So when you look up, all the figures are correct in size and shape. He painted in a fresco. What is fresco? I'm glad you ask. It's a technique of mural painting executed upon freshly laid lime plaster. Water and egg or a binder is used as the vehicle for the dry powder pigment to merge with the plaster, and with the setting of the plaster, the painting becomes an integral part of the wall. The word fresco is derived from the Italian adjective fresco, meaning fresh. When painting fresco, you had to complete a small section because it would dry so fast, and if you didn't get it right, you had to cut it out and start over. You would put up a plaster base and use a paper pattern with punch holes to follow the drawing, so you can use a pounce bag to leave the pattern of the art on the fresh plaster. Then you would paint quickly before the layer of plaster dries. It's a little more complicated than this, but it gives you an idea. Central to the ceiling decoration are 9 scenes from the book of Genesis, of which the creation of Adam is the best known. This complex design includes several sets of individual figures, both clothed and nude. Michelangelo is demonstrating his skill in creating a huge variety of poses of the human figure. Did you know Michelangelo was not the first to paint the ceiling? This is what the ceiling looked like before. The original ceiling painting was by Pier Matteo de Melia, and had depicted stars over a blue background. 1504 the ceiling developed a crack and had to be repaired before it could be used again. Michelangelo was reluctant to agree to the commission, preferring sculpture to painting. He sought to find assistants to speed along the unwelcome work, but he was unable to find suitable candidates and painted nearly the whole ceiling alone. Pope Julius II was a warrior pope, and Michelangelo, now around 30 years old, had a prickly personality, so they would clash, and argued shortly after the start. The ceiling's subject matter was the Christian doctrine of humanity's need for salvation by God through Jesus. It is a visual metaphor of humankind's need for a covenant with God. The ceiling illustrates that God made the world as a perfect creation and put humanity into it, that humanity fell into disgrace and was punished by death and separation from God. Much of the symbolism of the ceiling dates from the early church, but the ceiling also has elements that express the specifically Renaissance thinking that sought to reconcile Christian theology with the philosophy of the Renaissance thinking. The ceiling of the Sistine Chapel was to have a profound effect upon other artists, even before it was completed. Vasari, who wrote the biographies of living Renaissance artists, said, "The whole world came running when the vault was revealed, and the sight of it was enough to reduce them to stunned silence." So for 500 years people came to see Michelangelo's ceiling. Over time, with people and candle smoke, and the ceiling lost its color. I remember seeing books about Sistine and it looked old and dirty. I thought this was how it was painted. Still beautiful but missing something. Did you know there was previous restorations on the ceiling? by as early as 1547 was seeing signs of damage. In 1625, a restoration was carried out by Simone Loggi, and in 1710 to 1713 a further restoration was carried out by the painter Annibale Mazzoli and his son. Restoration Laboratory of the Vatican Museum worked between 1935 to 1938, at the eastern end of the building, and partially removed the soot and dirt. The last restoration began in 1979. Between 1980 to 1984 was the first stage of restoration. This restoration was unveiled by Pope John Paul II on April 8, 1994. The final stage of the restoration was unveiled in December 1999. After the restoration, an air conditioning system would be installed. It also controls humidity, bacteria and chemical pollutants are filtered out. I remember seeing the first books that had pictures of the new restoration. They were beautiful and I was in awe. There were people who complained about how it was restored, but from my point of view the ceiling was in bad shape. They saved Michelangelo's ceiling. In January 2007, it was claimed that as many as 10,000 visitors passed through the Vatican museums in a day, and that the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel is the biggest attraction. The Vatican, anxious at the possibility that the newly restored frescoes will suffer damage, announced plans to reduce visiting hours and raise the price in an attempt to discourage visitors. This was a simple walk through the chapel, and I hope this sparks your interest to find out more. I highly recommend you read Michelangelo and the Pope's Ceiling. Great book. I put the link down in the description with other helpful links. Subscribe and thanks for watching.